10 years ago, cybersecurity was not an issue. 10 years ago, some of us in the room worked on it. It was largely something for intelligence agencies or for technologists. And now it's become a central theme for both national governments, for companies, and for the international community. And why is that? You heard a little bit in the Prime Minister's remarks. It's because the digital economy is like what happened with the electrification at the turn of the 19th century, right? It's crucial for how economies will grow. It's changing how people interact. But the effects of the cyber revolution are more profound because they involve global connectivity and information, right? And that's very different from electricity. Just before I came here, I tested how far away is New Zealand, how far away is Auckland from Washington on the internet? And the answer is 1/4 of a second, right? So you're probably actually closer to me than the building across the street. One of the things that's changed in the last few years is that while we don't want to overstate risk, it is, as you heard, something you have to think about. And one of the things I do, usually now when I talk to a lot of boards or companies, is say, do you have a risk management committee, right? And does that risk management committee now consider cyber risk, right? Just like foreign exchange risk or political risk, any of the risks that you think about as a company, this is now one of them. And you don't want to underestimate it, right? You can think about the value of your data. You can think about the criticality of your functions, what you actually provide. You can think about the scalability of failure. Is it just you or is it a lot of people? That can help you define risk. We don't want to overstate it, but we also don't want to pretend it's not there. So what we want to do here today is figure out how to manage that risk without sacrificing the opportunities. Cybersecurity does not occur in a vacuum, right? It's shaped by economics. It's a business decision for companies. It's more than a business decision for companies, though, and that's one of the difficulties you have to bridge, right? It's a problem for national policy, right? Governments need to think how they mobilize their societies, how they orient them to take collective action to protect themselves. And so it's a collective effort. We all know the drill now, that if one person does it and everyone else doesn't, you're really not going to be that much safer. How do you act collectively, right? Cybersecurity is dynamic. You have to manage it. It's not like you're going to put something in place and then you can go away and you've fixed it, right? This was the one place where the Congress actually was able to pass a law to improve information sharing between companies. That turns out to be really important. And between companies and the government, and that turns out to be really hard. Where does New Zealand stack up? It's always bad to tell your host where they stack up. The only reason I'm doing it is because you actually are in pretty good shape. Does that mean it's perfect or you're done or you can go home now? No, it does not. I said it was a dynamic problem and you'll have to continue to work on this. But when you look at New Zealand has put in place many of the elements of a successful strategy. And you've identified many of the things you have to work on to make that strategy work. The real test is in implementation. The real test is in resources. You heard about a commitment of resources. And the real test is in political commitment. You need to build a workforce. This turns out to be hard for everyone. No one has an adequate cybersecurity workforce, and everyone complains about it. So in that sense, when I say everyone, I mean every country I ever talked to. How do you build that cybersecurity workforce? So the way I want you to think about this is New Zealand faces real threats, right? Companies are at risk, but it's a manageable risk if you take action, right? And so what you want to think is, how can we take action in a way that empowers growth and innovation at the same time we manage to protect our own societies?